He'd wake up in the morning, he'd be down in the basement. And I would say, how are you getting down the basement? He says, this little old lady is letting me down there. I said, Drafty, there's no little old lady in here. Yeah, she's in the basement.
One time I brought it out, I'm crying. I'm like, Mommy, my doll won't work. So she goes, she gets some batteries, she puts it in. But she only has like one battery in it, and it starts talking. And then the battery fell out. And my mom didn't realize that it had fallen, and it's still crying. And I said, Mommy, here, there's no batteries now.
I'm not a person that you can scare easy. Okay, it would take a lot for me to get like really, really scared. When I went to rent this place, Satan's Choice, where they were living there, I said, down here to look at the house, do you mind if I come in? They just looked at me and said, it's all yours.
When I was growing up, there was a house down the street that was vacant and ramshackle. To me and my friends, that meant only one thing. The house was haunted. Hi, I'm Lawrence Chow. Welcome to Ghostly Encounters. You know, haunted houses aren't just for young boys looking for thrills. People throughout history have told stories of running into scary beings in spooky dwellings. Anthropologists tell us that those stories come from all cultures and from all ages. Sometimes they're a one-time event, and sometimes they repeat themselves over years. And once in a while, they repeat themselves within a single family. Today, we'll explore the phenomenon of generational haunting. We meet a family who will tell us about a ghost that followed them for over 30 years. In 1975, Mary Carmichael and her common-law husband were looking for a house to rent. Despite its previous tenants, the house on Salmon Avenue in Toronto seemed to fit the bill. But Mary had a bad feeling, a feeling she decided to ignore. And that turned out to be a big mistake.
I sort of got the willies about it, right? Like, just, I don't know, just something, like, would tell you, like, this house is like there's something wrong with it. I looked at Tanya's dad and I said, do you find that house kind of, like, weird and creepy? He said, yeah, I bet. I don't know. I said, I just sort of got chills when I went in there, like sort of cold chills. And I said, maybe it's just me, right? So I just let it go until I moved in. Tanya's dad would leave for work at about 6 in the morning. So I would get up and I would start unpacking things and putting them like where I wanted them. I was hearing things, okay, like these strange things and that, and I'm like, okay, then it's just because I moved into a new place. Gotta get used to it. So then I started hearing this, like, baby or just a small child cry. But it was like it was hurt. I walked over there, because it would get a little loud, like a little bit louder and a little louder. So I went to that corner, but it stopped. When I walked away, it started again, so I went back again. But every time I went back there, it would stop. And then I started hearing, like, things in the basement, like these sort of weird sounds. They're hard to explain, because it would sound like there was some kind of like animal down there, and it was clawing at something, like trying to get out or whatever. And I said, well, you know, I'm not opening that door, and I'm not going to allow anybody else to open that door. Because whatever's behind that door, who knows? But little Drafty would always be down in the basement. He'd wake up in the morning, he'd be down in the basement. And I would say, how are you getting down in the basement? He says, this little old lady is letting me down there. I said, what little old lady? He said, Drafty, there's no little old lady in here. Yeah, she's in the basement. I said, no, there's nobody in the basement. Oh yeah, he said, she plays hide and seek with me. She's funny. So what we did, we put a lock right up, way up the top, so that he could not get down in that basement. We got up, he was down there. And again, he said, the lady let him down there. She unlocked the door and let him down there. I even went down with him. I said, see, Drafty, there's nobody here. There's no lady down here. And he'd be pointing and saying, yeah, there she is, right there, right there, look. And I'd be looking, right? And I said, no, there's nobody there. I don't see anybody. She's right there. So it was like he could see her, and you couldn't. And Miss Plummer came, okay. My niece was visiting me at the time, so me and her just sat there talking while he was down doing whatever he had to do. So I noticed that he was down there for quite a while, So I said to Carol Ann, that plumber's been down there an awful long time. I said, maybe I should just go and check on him. So I did. I hollered down to him, right, and I said, are you okay? And he said, don't you come down here. I said, I'm not coming down, I just want to know if you're okay. He said, just go back and sit down. He says, don't come down here. He come up out of the basement, and I go to the living room with him, and he looked at me and he says, he was white, he was whiter than my fridge. And I said, are you okay? And he says, no, I'm not. He said, I'm going to tell you something right now. He said, I'm not going to tell you what I found down there or what I seen. He said, I'll tell you something. He said, I'm leaving here. He said, I don't know. He said, I might even quit my job. He said, after being here. And I said, can't you tell me what you're talking about? He said, no, I can't. He said, I'm not going to tell you. He just left. He just said, I'm just real sick, very sick. I had called the police in, and they had checked the house out, and they even said that they were even scared. They even said to me, they said, we're not going down in that basement, okay? They said, what we'll do, we'll go and I'll check the windows on the outside of the house. He said, but we're not going down in the basement. Now, under one window, it's in the front of the house. Down there, okay, the whole basement floor is all concrete, okay? But there was one part right underneath this window that was just all just dirt, and it was sort of weird the way it was laying there, right? And I noticed that too, and I said, I wonder why. I said, this whole floor is all concrete. I said, but that one piece over there under that window is left like that. But we never bothered about it after that, We just brushed it off. My nephew, Arthur, was out to a donut shop one time, and he happened to overhear this other girl in this donut shop talking about this house on 7th Avenue. There was a grandmother, and there was 2 kids, and the mother and the father. The mother had went to bingo one night. He went crazy or something, and he grabbed the grandmother and threw her down the steps, and he also took the 2 kids, and apparently he murdered the 2 kids. How true this is, I don't know, but Arthur said this girl was talking about Salmon Avenue. So he went over to her, and asked her, what house on Salmon Avenue are you talking about? And she gave him the same address of the house that I lived in. It's like it wanted to let you know that it was there, as if it was looking for help or wanting somebody to know something happened. I really think that there was something done to a child in that house. It's never been let out or never been found. Something else was there besides this child, and this other part didn't want anybody to know. I really think it's still there in that house. I didn't feel safe there anymore then. I just said, no. Like, I'm getting out of here. Like, I'm not staying in this house any longer for something else to happen, because I never knew what was going to happen. I just told Tanya's dad, like, you know what, I got to get out of here. I wouldn't even go in the house by myself. So I more or less, actually, I was out of the house, like, pretty well, like, all day. I would go down to my sister's, walk to her place, and then from there, I go home about what I figured about about the time he would be there. But I would sit out on the steps until he drove up in the driveway. Then I'd go in the house. But I would not go in by myself.
Every culture has some kind of belief in the supernatural. These beliefs pose certain questions about how we see the relationship between the living and the dead. Do we believe ghosts exist as a force for good or as a force for evil? Are they here to help us or are they here to harm us? If there is contact between the living and the dead, could it be because a ghost is seeking vengeance for some terrible injustice it suffered during life? Or did it appear because it needs help in righting some terrible wrong? After Mary left the house on Salmon Avenue, she gave birth to a daughter, Tanya. But the new location and Mary's new addition didn't change things. The ghostly encounters began again, and this time, they involved Mary's young daughter.
I know it started happening basically when I was a little girl. I started telling my mom, you know, I see this man in the mirror. I know I was always told stories about Salmon Avenue where my mom lived before, and I don't know if that's what escalated me to say these things, but after a while, my mom started taking it really seriously. Other strange things started happening too, like my dolls. My mom, one time I brought it out, I'm crying, I'm like, Mommy, my doll won't work. You know, the batteries are dead. So she goes, she gets some batteries, she puts it in. But as she's like going to put them in, she only has like one battery in it, and it starts talking, like what it would normally say, which is Mama, you know, and make a crying sound, and that's what it started doing. And then the battery fell out, and my mom didn't realize that it had fallen, and it's still crying. And I said, Mommy, here, there's no batteries now. And with that, she threw it away. She wouldn't keep the doll. And I know there was another incident to do with another doll. It was like a big, tall doll that was life-size, the size of yourself. I told my mom it pulled my hair, and I didn't want it in my room. She had to actually take it back to the store. It was a brand new doll. And I kept telling her, it pulled my hair, I don't want this doll. So I think it used to have to do with the mirrors and with my toys.
In the Western tradition, ghosts aren't generally seen as very mobile. They tend to stick to one place. Two classic examples are the lady in white who walks the garden after midnight, weeping for her lost love. And then there's the ghost of Hamlet's father. He appears on the same rampart night after night. From what Tanya has just told us, the story of the ghost of Salmon Avenue seems to be the exception. But Mary and Tanya's ghostly encounters don't end with Tanya's childhood experiences. Many years later, Tanya is a young mother with children of her own, and Mary is a fond and loving grandmother. The strange events relating to the house on Salmon Avenue should be in the past, forgotten and put aside. One day, Mary is visiting her daughter.
She was living on Ridewin at the time, and we were sitting in the kitchen. The phone was sitting on the table. She had one of the walk-around phones, okay, and it was sitting on the table.
I'm sitting at the table talking to my mom. She's making a tea, and all of a sudden the phone started like vibrating and spinning on my table. And it almost looked like it was being hit over and over again, like it was like somebody was tapping it, because it was actually vibrating. You could see it like a shaking motion as it was going. And I wasn't sitting in the chair anymore, obviously. Like, I stood up when this phone started spinning, because it scared me. And it was like it happened so quick though, and then it was like it just stopped spinning all of a sudden.
And then it started spinning again, but then it kept spinning like faster and faster and faster, right? And she got scared. She said, "Mom, what's going on?"
Automatically she says the same thing. Things are starting to happen again. And after that, it was just a numerous amount of things. Like, my stove would turn on its own. My kettle would boil on its own. It's an electric kettle. You have to plug it in and turn it on.
Then all the burners, like on her stove, come on. They all come on. And then her toaster come on. Her kettle came on. This stuff all started coming on by itself. She went over and she turned it all off. 5 minutes later, it would be all back on.
Then I had occasions where my fire alarm was going off constantly, and there was nothing there to set it off. It was like as if it was sensing a heat of some sort.
So I remember you were telling me about this house on Salmon Avenue. She said, "Do you think maybe the same thing?" She said, "Do you think this is why this is still happening?"
It's the feeling of not knowing what it is and why it's there. Like, it's like a big puzzle. You try to put different things together and try to figure out, why is this happening? Why is it picking us? It's really strange, because is there actually somebody in your house or isn't there? Because sometimes it feels so real that there's actually somebody standing behind you. I've walked down my hallway and felt like something was walking behind me. You turn around, there's nothing there. And that could be the same night that my kettle will turn on. Honestly, for me to, explain it, I don't know. It's hard to say, but it's definitely, there's something there, and, I'd love to know what it is. I mean, I was even thinking of possibly going to a psychic, actually. I have thought of it, I've just never done it. I've spoke to a priest myself. I haven't actually had one come into my own home since I've been living on my own, but, my mom did a long time ago. And in a way, I'm a little bit scared, to do that, because if they do say, yeah, we sense something and this and that, is that going to make me feel more uncomfortable than I already do? It's hard. Like, actually, just last night, it's really strange. It was about an hour I went to bed, and about an hour later I got up, and I could smell something burning, and I'm like, what is that? And I walked down the hallway, and it's like a stronger smell, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, why aren't the smoke detectors going off or anything like that? So I opened the hallway door just to check and see if I see anything. The hallway's full of smoke. And here's a little paper, all burnt, sitting outside my door. At first, it doesn't seem like it wants to hurt anybody, but if these things are happening where my burners are turning on, sometimes it's like, maybe it doesn't mean to, but it's just, that's dangerous. Something could happen, so should I contact a psychic and find out? Should I call a priest in? You know what I mean? It's hard. But what do you do in a situation like that,
Sometimes, I'll be like I might be sitting out by myself, like Tanya might be sleeping, and like her and Michael off to bed, and then I'll be sitting out in the living room by myself. And I think sometimes I always wonder, is something gonna happen while I'm sitting here by myself? Or am I gonna see something that I don't wanna see?
I kind of just try to pretend it's not there, like I'll get on the phone and talk to a friend, or I'll go do dishes and different things like that, like I try to occupy myself, because I don't like the feeling of it. So, if I'm walking down the hall and I think something's behind me, I'll try to think about something else. It startles you, but then again, this is happening so often, you kind of know that it's probably connected to everything else. So what do you do? You know what I mean? You just have to occupy yourself with other things. Sometimes I'll pick up a magazine and read it, or I'll go every now and then. I've gotten really nervous and just kind of went in my room and went to sleep. Kind of felt a little more secure. being under a blanket.
While both Mary and Tanya's stories cover many years and more than one location, both of them believe their experiences are connected to the house on Salmon Avenue. Ghost stories may repeat, but traditionally, it's unusual for a ghost to attach itself so strongly to one family. Why didn't it transfer its attention to the next inhabitants of the house? Why not to some previous tenants? Mary and Tanya believe the ghost sent something special and followed them to get their help in seeking justice for a terrible crime that may have been committed in that dark basement.
I don't think anybody ever really bothered going there and digging that part up. And I just have the strongest feeling that there has been something buried there, whether it's a child or something, that there is something there in that one part down in the basement. Over underneath that window, and I would say anybody that went down in that basement, that there would draw your attention.
If it's to do with Salmon Avenue, if it's the same thing and it's followed, I think it wants us to know what happened there. I think that's what it is. I think it wants us to know what happened there so that maybe it can go off to a place where it should have went in the first place, a better place.